Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's Thursday night once again, and this is Donna Reyes, your host for Quantum GK, your weekly kwentuhan or conversation with people who love the poor, who love Gawad Kanina, right? And this evening, we are excited to have one of the people who have supported Gawad Kanina throughout the years and continue to support our work. Please welcome Miss Sarah Meredith Ku. Hello, Sarah. How are you?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. I owe so much to Gawad Kalinga and in creating my social enterprise, Kaya Essentials. And so I'm so excited to share my GK journey.
Well, we're excited to have you, and we're excited to hear your story about how you started Kaya Essentials, and and how that just grew to the business that it is now. But before we get to that, I'm pretty sure a lot of our audience, who are mainly followers of our Gawad Kalinga USA Facebook page, are excited to know a little bit more about you. So if you don't mind, I just want to ask a little bit about your background. I understand that your mom is a Filipina, right? And your father is from the UK, from the United Kingdom. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Even though my accent is very American and I have no family ties here, but at heart, I feel like I am a Phil-Am. I am half Pinay, half British, and was actually born in Hong Kong. My mom actually moved to Hong Kong as a domestic helper when she was 17 years old. So she
Oh,
actually had to
wow.
lie on her birth
I
certificate.
was gonna say, was that even legal?
No, I mean, it was really because she had to move there to help her family, you know?
Right,
Um,
right.
and so the Hong Kong is about 2 hours away from the Philippines. So I grew up visiting my Lola's house in Tarcan Concepcion in Baliwag, Bulacan every 2 to 3 months, spent my summers there. And then because of my dad's job, he is a civil engineer for airports. And so every single time an airport was finished, we had to move to a different country. And so I actually lived in India for a couple of years, and then Istanbul and Turkey for 3 years, and then went to boarding school, which I credit as like a little mini university before I went to college. You get that like independent experience, and then finally went to college in London.
All right. Well, you're obviously very much in touch with your Filipino roots, having spent time in the Philippines, even though you're going back and forth, right? So obviously you're very familiar with our culture and everything. Although you do sound American now with your accent, I was like, "Where's the British accent?" I was expecting to. I was preparing to, but I can't do British accents. but
Neither can
but
I at all.
so but you also mentioned that your mom's background as a domestic helper, it really is obviously driven by the fact that they really just needed an opportunity, so that that she can provide for her family. And that's really a typical story, of a lot of Filipinos who are based in Hong Kong or work in Hong Kong. So how does that, do you think that that sort of background affects your, would be involvement in Gawad Kalinga? Was that something that you've always, growing up wanted to do, or was it just something that kind of, you came across later on in your adult life?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, my mom, like growing up, I have a younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me, and she always reminded us that all the opportunities that we were able to have, even basic opportunities that I would honestly react when I was younger, like, of course, this is normal, you know? For example, like she would tell us that they would have only meat once a month because they couldn't afford to have protein, and so finishing all the food on our table,
Mm.
respect to our elders and our food and the fact that we could study. My mom would always remind me how she wished that she could have gone to college and she just didn't have the money for. And so from a young age, I became very fortunate and very appreciated all the work that my family was doing to provide the opportunities for my brother and I. And when I had first got introduced to Gawad Kalinga, it was actually when Tito Tony was giving a talk at the London School of Economics. And there were so many things that just hit me. And one of the things, as it relates to my mom's story, is the fact that, like you said, this is the only path for so many families. That was the only thing my mom could do. And several of her other siblings, my uncle moved to Saudi to work as a construction worker. My tita is a nurse in Canada, and it was the only option for them, to survive and create any type of future. And I remember Tito Tony saying that this cannot be the only option. We need to create more jobs in the Philippines. And I remember him even talking about how, so many people are moving to the capital city in Manila, and how there's so much wealth in the countryside, and how we need to diversify, the crops and the wealth, and it cannot only be in the populated areas. And I remember that was like the first time that I felt like this is a solution that I feel that I can really see. And it's so needed as well, because I've personally experienced with my cousins how it's very typical that my cousin who only has the option to work abroad, her Lola becomes her daughter's mom, because
Right.
so many Lolas are looking after their grandkids just because their moms have to work abroad. And so that
Right.
was one of the things that really captured my heart. And I remember that day so well. And I basically went up to Tita Tony and was like, I need to be part of GK. And I met Zaza, who is the head of GK Europe there.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I started my internship with her. But yeah, I really learned so much.
I can totally relate to that story. My mother actually had to also work and well, she put up a business in the U.S., right? And that was when my father died. When we were only like little kids. I was 11. My brothers were 9 and 7. And there weren't a lot of opportunities in the Philippines at that time, and even now, right? And that's why we continue to, to export labor, right? And it's one of the highest contributing to our economy, the Philippine economy. My wish is that someday all Filipinos who travel abroad are traveling because they want to, and they want to see Disneyland out in LA, or or to travel and just enjoy it, not because they have to, right? So tell us a little bit about, since you alluded to wanting to be part of Gawad Kalinga's work, and you told Tita Tony that, and I guess that brought you to, like you said, your internship at the GK Enchanted Farm, right, in Bulacan, in Angat, Bulacan. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so when I first met Teacher Tony, I also met Zaza, who is in charge of GK Europe, and she was starting these summer programs where she would connect with business students in Europe and connect them to social enterprises at the GK Enchanted Farm. And I was a history student in college, and so I had no idea about like economics or business or anything like that. And I'm really glad that I got introduced to the business world in this way, in a holistic way, in a way that you can make a difference and you can follow your passion. And I remember Tito Tony speaking about how, like in the Philippines, there's such a huge import mentality, and it comes with a colonial mentality that we think that anything that is produced in the West is of better quality, and we assign higher value to it. And so and the importance of having like Filipino made products. And so I remember him talking about how coca farms in the Philippines have been there for centuries and have been, making chocolate. And when we think of chocolate, we think the best chocolate comes from Switzerland. And we don't
Right.
honor the context. We don't honor where it comes from. And so for me personally, when I heard that, something that I attribute like so much of my like Filipino beauty life is coconut oil. And my
Right.
lola would make coconut oil from scratch. She would go to the market. She would get the coconut meat and boil it and make it into an oil. And we'd like massage it into our hair. And I remember thinking like so many of my like European friends never heard of a coconut hair mask. And um, and how coconut oil is used in so many beauty products, but there's not that point of representation that it's Filipino coconut oil. And the Philippines has been like the world provider of coconut oil for decades,
Right.
always in the top five, along with Thailand, Indonesia, and India. And I remember after that speech that I'd heard from Tito Tony, I went home to my dorm in London, and the specific jar that I was using was a French brand called La Tourangelle. And in small letters in the back, it said made in the Philippines. And that just hurt me so much because I know how much like the coconut oil in the Philippines is so fresh, it's so good, for your skin and your health. And why is there not this like international representation of Filipino coconut oil? And I remember how when we were speaking about the colonial mentality, the fact that we have such a complicated history, and how we look at Western goods as we place a higher value on them. And I remember Tito Tony talking about the importance of having like Filipino made products, Filipino pride. And I knew then that I wanted to start a social business, and I really wanted to make sure that I created a brand name that was rooted in all the values that we have, and it had to be a Tagalog word, and it became Kaya Essentials. And Kaya stems from Kaya Natin, which means we can
Mhm.
do, and Kaya Ko, which is I can do it. And so yeah, lots of people ask me if my name is Kaya, but maybe in the future if I have a daughter it could be that. But
That
yeah,
is
so
such a cool name.
Kaya Essentials.
Yeah, yeah. So Kaya, you're right. With Kaya means, we can, or I
Can't do it.
can, right? Or we can do it, right? Kaya is like, it's like, was it maybe? So like it depends on how you pronounce it. So we want to make sure for those of you watching us who do not speak Tagalog, it's Kaya, not Kaya. Okay,
Yeah,
because when it's Kaya, it means something else. It's like
something
being doubtful or like, but it's Kaya with conviction, right? With we can do it, and obviously, you can do it. You've done it. You continue to do it, and I just love that. So, tell us a little bit. I know you said you spent some time in the Philippines, going back and forth, between the Philippines and Hong Kong. But when you interned, how long was the internship? And
yeah. I interned for GK Europe during my college years. And in the school year, I would be based in London. And a lot
mhm.
of that was helping with the organization of these trips that Zaza would host at the GK Enchanted Farm. And then the summers I would spend at the GK Enchanted Farm. And then that
Okay,
was for a period of 3 to 4 years in my
so it's
early 20s.
about a couple months every year, something like that.
At the Enchanted Farm,
Yeah.
1 month of the
Yeah.
summer, and then
Okay.
throughout the whole school year. So that was like September to June, and then we would spend like either July or August at the Enchanted Farm, which also happens to be very close to my Lola's house. She
Where's your Lola? Where's your family based? Where's your Lola
They're in
based?
Baliwag, Bulacan, and then
Oh,
Zamboanga
okay.
an hour.
Yeah. So convenient. So did you stay, like, did you live in Angat or did you go home to your
Both,
Lola's?
both. And then also my mom would come, and like my cousins would come, and like we do the like host, like they would host us for the day, and we would visit all the different social businesses.
Right.
And that's really something that I was so inspired by as well. I mean, the GK Enchanted Farm is known as like a hub of like social entrepreneurship, and there's like so many different social businesses that are being created. I just have to like shout out Plush and Play with Fabian. I remember First Harvest, which is a local um, peanut butter company. And
Yeah.
when they first started, when I was there, which was almost a decade ago, I went there 2 years ago, I believe, or maybe 3 years ago now, and they have like a huge facility and have employed so many different nanais from GK communities.
That's
And
awesome.
also Bayani Brew, I remember as soon as I
I've
came.
had Bayani Brew. It's
Yeah,
it's it's good.
it's so good, and it's made with all these amazing ingredients that are so good for your skin and your health, and
Right.
it's so tasty as well, and it's like sugar free, and it's just, you really see the opportunity that that GK has created with connecting farmers and local traditional, recipes, and bringing it to the mainstream market. I mean, Bayani Brew is all like nationwide now. And then of course there's like Human Heart Nature, which of course I was
Right.
so inspired by as well, being in like the coconut beauty um, business. And then I also got introduced to their feeding program, Cocina Nakalinga. And
Mm-hmm.
so with Kaya, I really wanted to make sure that one, our sourcing of coconut oil was fair trade, sustainable, and ethical. So we source it from a fair trade Filipino farm in Davao, and it is 100% owned by Filipinos and employs small family farms. So it's a co-op, and for every product purchase, we donate a school meal to Kusina Nakalinga, or K&K. And the reason that I love that as well is because it's something that is so tangible for people to understand how what a meal looks like and how important it is for a kid, who for some that is their only full balanced meal in the day. So
Right.
um I feel like with GK, there's just so much that they do. And I know that you had the Seed Scholar last week, and that is also so amazing, and how they are really putting experience and entrepreneurship together. And that's something
Right.
that business, like entrepreneurship courses in America or in the West in Europe would never have that opportunity to like work with materials and like what's it like to actually create something. And then there's like the Cibol, the after school programs, and then also just how they, use sweat equity into building the communities. I always feel like when I have to share GK, I don't know where to start, but for me specifically, it was always in the social entrepreneurship uh, family that I was a part of.
Yeah, there's so many things really that Gawad Kalinga offers and to alleviate poverty in the Philippines. Although it's known for, the bright and nice houses, homes, right? That we build, there it's really a comprehensive program. And while you don't know like where to start in sharing what GK does, once you get going though, you don't know when to stop
I
because
know, exactly.
right. There's so many that, like I feel like everyone who's interested in helping will find a place in Gawad Kalinga, right? In
There's
terms
something
of
for, yeah.
there's something for everyone.
And you can really grow with it as well. And that's something when I talk to GK volunteers in high school, for me, like I would have never gotten introduced to social business and that opportunity. And I remember when I first started interning for GK, I also met Reese Fernandez, who is the creator of
Yes.
Rags to Riches. And it's so amazing how now with Kai Essentials, we've expanded into having an artisan marketplace. And going back to what we were talking about before and creating jobs in the Philippines, that's something, the impact that artisan communities have and what Rags to Riches is doing is so amazing. And I have come full circle, and we now carry Rags to Riches items on Kai
Oh
Essentials.
wow.
So I'm actually
Awesome.
wearing one of our new pieces
I was
that
gonna
is
ask about that. It looks really
collaboration
cute.
Rags to Riches, and it's called our Yakap wrap top. And it's a beautiful wrap that you can wear in many different
Wow.
ways. So
Yeah,
I
go
love
ahead
it.
and stand up if you don't mind so we
Yeah,
can see.
it's
That's awesome.
have
Here,
it
let me
like tie the bow in so many different in so many different ways, or you can just wear it as like a cardigan, and it is handmade. It's handmade with hand woven indigenous designs, and this one is called binakol. And Rags to Riches really is such an amazing hub where they have employed so many urban artisans, and they are also working with indigenous weavers and really creating wealth in so many communities. And I know Reese was also so inspired by Rags to Riches, by Gawad Kalinga in starting Rags to Riches. And
right. I actually met her when that was just in infancy, or they
oh,
were just start. Yeah, they were just starting. Maybe this was I would say 2010, I think. So
yeah,
like, oh
they
my gosh, that's been
did it.
11 years ago. And I
Yeah.
think now they're international, right? They have some the name escaped me, but a clothing like a popular clothing line actually also carries their products.
Yeah,
I'd like to say
Anthropology
anthropology, right? Okay,
in
isn't
Europe
it
and
awesome?
here.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then IKEA, that just opened up in Manila, which is like the biggest IKEA in the world. They have collaborated with Rags to Riches to upcycle a lot of the fabrics as well to reduce fashion waste. And so I mean, I'm just showing like you make these connections. I first met Reese 8 years ago. And in starting Kaya, just as a woman of color, start as a solo entrepreneur, I bootstrapped the business. I used my own savings for it. Reese, I connected with her, and she was so helpful in, guiding me, and also just you need like your mentors to just be like Kaya mo as well, and
Yes,
so
yes.
supportive. And then now to be in a place where Kaya has grown beyond skincare and now creating an artisan marketplace. And another one that I have introduced, which I'm so happy about when I was talking about the chocolate. There's this Filipino chocolate company, the first bean to bar chocolate company called Theo and Philo that started
Oh
with
yes.
community.
GK also.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my
So I
gosh.
became a distributor for Theo and Philo. And I
Oh
told
wow.
I first, discovered GK, learned about the social businesses, and saw what Theo and Philo was doing. It was so inspiring as well. And so, yeah, has now come like full circle to reconnect with these entrepreneurs in the Philippines that are, to bring it here to the US.
That is so awesome. Okay, so those are all great companies that you mentioned: Rags to Riches, Theo and Philo. The Bayani Brew, and all of those came from the GK Enchanted Farm, and of course, Kaya Essentials also was inspired by, like you said, by your experience at the GK Enchanted Farm. So, can you tell us a little bit about how you came, how you came up, how Kaya Essentials, came about? What was the inspiration? You mentioned, the name and everything, but why this lane? I mean, why not, you know why not food? Why not something else? Why the beauty line of business?
Yeah, so for me, I mean, my first introduction to beauty was through coconut oil. And I have so many memories with my mom, like having self care days and with my Lola and my titas, and just, really giving yourself that self care and the space and using it as a hair mask, all over body lotion. And I just love the simplicity of it as well. And when I was looking at the beauty world, I really saw that there was so much attention to the ingredients, but we weren't adding context to where these ingredients were coming from. And I do feel like that is something that's lost. It's like, I feel that there's this perpetuation where we get something from Asia. So many amazing ingredients are from Asia, and we mix it with Western technology. And that reinforces this colonial mentality that in order, that it has to be changed or, altered to be of value. And I wanted to disrupt that and show what we in the Philippines use, and our island beauty and the simplicity of it, and really adding that point of pride, um, and making sure that whenever I talk about Kaya Essentials, I always say we are Filipino organic coconut skincare. And the Filipino part to me is so important. And so that was really like the heart of Kaya Essentials. And just speaking a little bit about how I started, because of course, without having any VC funding or anything like that, I bootstrapped the business by myself. And so we actually started first with lip balms, and they did not look like this when I started. This is our honey and coconut one. And the reason I started with lip balms is because it's something that everybody uses, and it's something that can go through all ages, and it's something small. And so I looked at it as a way where you could buy just any other regular lip balm. Why not buy one that supports fair trade coconut oil, that provides a school meal in the Philippines, and supports a small business and a woman of color business? And so we started with lip balms. And when I did a few of my pop-ups, I started meeting customers and really, taking the time to build the brand, in with the pop-ups before I even had an online business helped me so much, because talking to customers, seeing how they related to the product, the formula and the wording helped me so much. And they were the ones who actually asked, like, I use this on my nails, like I use this on my feet, like I would love this for my like dry skin and my elbows and as a beard balm, like so many different uses. And so they were the ones who actually grew the business at the start, like gave me all those ideas because they were wanting it. um, and an organization that I'm part of is called Entrepreneurship, and it's a organization for Filipino entrepreneurs. And really finding your community, as I mentioned, also Reese helped me so much. And finding mentors, people that you look up to, really help you at the start when you're starting your business. And there's like so many, like there's more. It feels like the highs are highs and the lows are lows, and it's kind of always like that. But at the very start, I remember I look back on that and I'm like, oh, Sara, like you made it, you know, because you doubt yourself a lot. It's not an easy path. And I knew that going in after connecting with all the social entrepreneurs in the Philippines. But
Mhm.
so that was such a great journey, and something that speaking in different panels and everything, people always ask, like, well, it sounds like you just knew that you could do it. Like, how did you know? And I always say, one, talking to social entrepreneurs, like meeting people who are actually doing their own businesses. And you find that people are really open, and sometimes you're scared to ask because you think like they don't have time for you, or it's a silly question. But you really can't be afraid, and you just, you know, so if there's anyone out there that would love to connect with me, I would love to hear your idea or anything. Even if you want to do a project and, you know, be entrepreneurial in this project and create something for your company or anything like that, it doesn't have to be like your whole own business. Um, and another thing that I always bring up is that I really learned all these like crafty skills through my mom. You know, I always share
Mhm.
my mom from a young age took care of herself and always had to learn how to make something out of nothing. And I feel that as also, you know, the immigrant families that I meet here, the fact that all that skill set that it took to say, okay, I'm going to hope for a better future, I'm going to fight for this, I'm going to make something out of it. And when you talked about your mom, like those are like entrepreneurial skills that you can't learn in business. And I feel that, especially for me as a solo entrepreneur, being frugal and learning how to be organized and take the baby steps in growing your business. And so that is like, for example, with packaging costs so much money, and you have to figure out like, what are some crafty, frugal ways that I can make this attainable, so I don't have to do this 5 years down the line, I can do it now. And of course,
Mhm.
like, our packaging is so much better than when it first started, even the design as well, because I've been able to hire a design consultant. But even starting like in page one, you like it, you know, it's better to do and not wait for perfection. Like I always say, perfection is the enemy of progress. And, you know, really that came from my mom's side, because she, um, you know, always taught us to just rely on our, like that we are our own champions, our own cheerleaders. And also that, you know, my mom's like the most craftiest person in making anything look like $1 million, or like, you know, maximizing the life of something. And that's really sustainability, right? It's like wearing
Mhm.
things different ways, upcycling your clothes, or getting more
Right.
out of a formula. Or like even with cooking, like with pasta sauce, my mom always puts like hot water in the jar and like shakes it so she gets like everything out.
That is so
Really
Filipino,
have
isn't it?
that mentality when
We
you
do
are.
that in shampoos too.
Yes, exactly. And then like cutting your toothpaste tube so you get like
Yeah.
everything out, and you like
Right.
learn to like really like really make the most out of something. And then as it comes
Yes.
to business, you learn how to be so crafty. And when I started Kai Essentials, I did pop-ups. And when you do pop-ups, you are in a marketplace of over like 100 makers. And so you really have to make your table stand out. And
Stand
I really
out.
it to my mom, who knows how to make anything look chic. Like all the party tables that I grew up with, like when it was my birthday, my mom would make our party table look so beautiful. And it was just really made out of nothing. It wasn't, you know, expensive things or anything like that.
Right.
And that really helps, you know, you have to make yourself stand out when you're doing
Right.
these pop-ups.
So there's so many things to pick up from what you just shared. But I'm really intrigued, right? I really want to know, like, you mentioned that you're a history major,
Yeah.
right? You're so you did you study entrepreneurship or like, as a business management course maybe? Did you? But even no. So but
No, I
even
absolutely did.
people, right, who majored in business management don't necessarily become entrepreneurs, right? And so, I have a strong feeling that that's because that there's a lot of challenges, or there are a lot of challenges, and that sometimes the risks are just too much for people to bear, and have courage to bear, right?
Yeah.
So what are I know, I mean, there's a lot of inspiration that's behind Kaya Essentials, but what are the challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, of course, not having that formal background also is a disadvantage because when it comes to, for example, looking at your finances, and you have to really look at where is my money making the most impact. When we talk about like marketing, for example. So I don't have that formal background.
Mhm.
And but that being said, like Google is really so
I
helpful.
was
And
gonna say, did you just Google? Did you just
you
do
just
your own
Google
research?
and you just connect with different entrepreneurs. And so even though I never had that formal background, because I would help Zaza from GK Europe with the um, programs that she was hosting for European business students.
Mm.
Um, they were all business. They were all doing their masters in business, and so I would sit in all their sessions, and they would help out different social enterprises in the Philippines. So for one summer, one of them was Mad Travel, which stands for Make a Difference,
Yes.
and it's
Mm-hmm.
was started by Tom and
Tom
Raf.
Graham.
Helped me so much in my business as well, so I'm so thankful for him. Um, but seeing how these European business students were taking MAD's initial business plan and looking at it and thinking, okay, how do we grow this? What are things you have to look out for? I was just like mentally jotting down everything and being like, oh, okay, like that's what it is. And so um, having that exposure, and I got that exposure through GK. And then, yeah, like Google is so helpful. And I will say that also, what I learned through Gawad Kalinga is also specifically with building a social enterprise, it's not your traditional business model. And so
Mm-hmm.
I am happy that I didn't go had that formal learning so that I didn't have to do any unlearning. And it does also take extra few steps because you want to look at how, when you source, for example, how can you make the most impact in your sourcing? And then with your give back model, how do you market that? At the end of the day, you're selling a product, and how do you make people feel like they're part of something? So it does take a few extra steps in order to do it, but when you see the impact that it can have, then that's also like your biggest motivator for growing, your own business.
So you mentioned sourcing. Where do you get your ingredients for the products?
Yeah, so our coconut oil is sourced from a fair trade farm in Davao. And it is 100% Filipino owned, and they employ small family farms in Davao. And so that
Mm.
ensures fair trade wages, and it makes sure that the working conditions are also safe and humane as well. And then our beeswax is locally sourced in the US. And then the key ingredient that we had when starting out was our calamansi essential oil. And I really wanted to create a product that would really like uplift the Filipino ingredients that I was using every single day. And calamansi is something that is so unique to the Philippines, and it's not commonly known or even commonly used in other ways other than food. And so when I found this family business in the Philippines that creates this calamansi essential oil, that was also like a aha moment, because it was like, this is meant to be. And I remember when I created the first calamansi lip balm that I had, I thought it was so good. And I was so scared. I thought it was good because I was Filipino and because it had so many memories for me. And so I you know, distributed it to all my different friends and family and people that I also didn't know. And I would connect with them in farmers markets, and they love what calamansi is. For people who don't even know what it is, they're like, wow, like a lemon can be, or a lime can be that small. Like I had no idea. Or I meet so many Americans who have traveled to the Philippines and was like, oh my gosh, that was so yummy. You know, I love like the calamansi drink. And then my favorite is when I meet different Phil-Ams who, you know, it has so many memories and so much joy in calamansi. And so I'm
Right.
really proud of our calamansi line.
That's amazing. I mean, I can imagine like putting on your lip balm and it just brings back so many memories, especially for Phil Ams who actually grew up and, maybe, spend their, good amount of their growing up years in the Philippines, right? All right. So, well, I just wanted to share this also. Speaking of challenges, right? And we talk about sourcing and everything. I actually had the opportunity to interview a Phil Am who's now based in the Philippines. I think if I'm not mistaken, the interview was like 3 4 years ago. But if she's not born in San Francisco, I think she they moved there when she was a little girl. So she pretty much grew up in the Bay Area, right? Her name is Charisse Aquino Togade, and she's the founder of the Manila Collectible. She's
Oh,
an anthropologist by profession, but now she promotes products made by indigenous people in the Philippines. So I thought that was really cool. So I had a pleasure of opportunity of interviewing her, and during that interview, I asked her about again, the challenges and everything, and she mentioned that we're growing up in the US and then now spending, doing business in the Philippines. So there's a little bit, there are cultural differences, right? And I know, you traveled a lot and everything, but there are going to be, cultural differences. So I asked her, what are the challenges? And one of the things she mentioned and kind of stuck with me was that sometimes it's difficult to work with local farmers or producers, etc., because whereas like the expectations, for example, of customers, her customers are mostly tourists, right? A lot of a lot of Americans, just like herself. The expectations are, for example, it should be this measurements. Let's say she asked for like 2 yards of something, right?
mm,
Of a tinalak or whatever, and she'll get like, a yard and 3/4 of a yard, something like that. It would be like an inch short or something like that, right? And they sometimes they don't understand. She said that when it says 2 yards, they really truly mean 2 yards. Or
yeah.
like, she expects, something to be delivered at a certain date. But the nanay or whoever, Nanay's daughter or whatever child got sick, and so she's unable to deliver. So
Yeah.
things like that. Do you have any, similar experiences?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. And that's kind of what I was when I was saying earlier that building your business no matter what is so difficult. And then when you do want to build a social business, there's a few extra steps that you have to take that that you implant um into your model, and it does take longer. There are things, as you said, like all of that does come up. And now that we've partnered with 15 artisan communities, the fact that you have a team coordinator for each one, but then each one has a group of nanais who are hand sewing, and of course things do come up, and then it funnels down, right? Like if someone doesn't make a delivery on time for this, it will have an effect on so many other things. And so I would say like being organized and being able to multitask are like two very important things in being an entrepreneur, especially if you have a small team. And I would say that all my skill set is from my mom. And I would argue that like that's something that women are so good at, managing, being like
Multitasking even, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
And I do remember like when I was speaking with Tito Tony, and I've been to so many different conferences where he's spoken, and I remember him making a remark where he was saying like poverty is not poverty is so is so deep within the community. It exists in so many different levels, and so therefore the solution cannot be simple. And I remember when he said that, I was just thinking how when we are trying to fix something, we always want something simple, a quick answer, or we think like, okay, this is it. And you never know how, for example, you are doing one pathway, but then you could be like hurting someone else over here. And
Right.
one example that I learned through Zaza from GK Europe was when we were talking about Tom's, which was one of the first social businesses in America,
Right.
that became very popular. And that business model, the one for one business model, is so great. But something that they were doing, where they were providing free shoes in countries in Africa, they were removing the jobs of local shoemakers because they would
Hmm.
no longer be they would no longer be as needed, right? Because it was
Right.
influx of free shoes. And so it's just, you have to be, and so you just realize like it's so complicated. You have to take your time, and it is tricky. Like I do have the delays. There's things that were meant to be for this quarter and now have to be moved to that quarter, and you do get frustrated. But when you are in the work of doing business for the social good, you do realize like poverty is not just giving money. You cannot just like fix a problem by just, yes, the investment is so important, the monetary investment is so important, but that's something I always loved about GK, is that Tito Tony would always say, we're going for their hearts and not their pockets. And like, as and so it is tough sometimes when you do have that like maybe cultural difference where you mean one thing and you mean the other, but you just realize
Right.
like how these are new challenges for so many individuals who now have a responsibility, and who haven't had the training for it or the background for it. And so patience is like the most important thing in those situations. But I do
Right.
relate to it because it is tough, because it trickles down. When one thing is late, then it affects so
Then
many other.
everything is right. Everything
Yeah.
else is affected. And it must be so hard too, coming from, the culture of my late father. I remember, even though he died when I was very young, I remember him calling me flashlight, because when I want something, I want it like now. When I like turning on a flashlight, and assuming there are batteries in it, right, and it turns on and it gives you light. But a lot of things isn't, like that, right? They don't work that way, and there really is value in in process and people. And it's not just about that, it's not everything is instantaneous or instant noodles, right?
I love
All
not
right.
everything instant noodles.
Not everything is instant noodles. All right. Well, at this point, I know there's a lot of people, watching us right now on Facebook page. If you guys have any questions or comments for Sarah, feel free to post them on the comments. Chrissy, hello, Chrissy. Saflala is monitoring the comments as well. So if there's anyone who wants to ask questions, or have any comments, please feel free to share with us, and I will read them so that everyone else also can share. All right. So you mentioned the one for one model, right? That Tom's, the shoe brand, right, has been famous for. I actually did a thesis on Tom's in graduate school, so I'm very familiar. They started with one for one shoes, right? One pair of shoes that they sell. A pair of shoes will be donated to impoverished children. But also, I think that also expanded to coffee, to sunglasses, to water. So I think it's really cool. But in your own words and experience, and exactly what idea you had about using the one for one model in Kaya, can you share that with us?
Yeah, and also as it relates to, I love Tom's, and they are one of the pioneers of social businesses that relates to like the global stage. And so I've so loved seeing how they've pivoted, and how they've always, like you said, they're doing sunglasses, they're doing so much. And I've
Mhm.
going back to like relying on Mr. Google, the founder Blake, like his book is so amazing in learning about social entrepreneurship, and he's also talked about how evolving that one for one model and expanding into how better can we create a social impact, and as with Kaya, what I love about the one for one is that it's so tangible, as I said. And I do think that all of us want to give back. We want to participate. We want, our Bayanihan spirit go, like working as a community. But I do think that sometimes there's a distrust when it comes to charities, especially if it's far away and you don't know where your money is going to, and also I remember talking about this, with a few GK people about how traditionally charities have also focused on like the big donors, right? So for example, a huge gala will be thrown and the table is thousands of dollars. And while that's great for those group of people and businesses that can participate in that way, there's so many individuals who, have $5 to spare, $10 to spare, or they want to have items in their life that reflect their values. And one of those values is giving back. And so that one for one with our products, you have a lip balm, you could go to any drugstore to get your lip balm. The fact that you would support Kaya Essentials and care about our that it provides a school meal to K&K is such a tangible way, and it's something that we can track as well. And so we have donated over 9,000 school meals, and so I'm very excited for when we reach the 10K mark, and we celebrate every 1K mark with an Instagram giveaway and just talking to the community. And it's so great to have customers who remember when my number was at like 200, was at like 80. And it really shows, and this goes back to where Kaya started, which is the Kaya Natin. Like we do more when we work together, when we come together. And I really want to show that, small actions of kindness lead to big impact. Like you think, okay, fine, it's one meal. What does that mean? But when you look into the K&K program, you really see like how, we're a very small part of K&K. K&K feeds over 50,000 children in the Philippines daily. And I've been a volunteer there, and they start at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. preparing their ingredients. And I remember like task number one was like chopping 20 onions and 20 like garlics, like massive like bulbs of garlic. So it's like actually even more than 20 cloves of garlic. And, they're preparing, the school that we went to was the one just outside of the Enchanted Farm in Angat. And it's a primary school, and it had about 200 students. And the K&K volunteers are preparing for like 5 to 7 hours, from prep to cleanup. And so, the fact that your donation goes to support that program, that at the end of the day provides a nutritional meal for a child who's growing up. And then you look at the science behind it, where like, we can't do things when we're hungry. How can you expect a child to absorb anything that they're learning if they're hungry? Right. And when we talk about like stunted growth and brain development, like having a nutritional meal is so important. Right. And so even though it's a small contribution, like I think that it's very easy for us to take a meal for granted, especially in the US when
there's too much
we've grown abundance up and we always have leftovers, and especially with the American portion size, everything is so big. But then when you see the impact that it has for the communities in the Philippines, in schools especially, like it really shows like how much a meal can create change.
So for every product that they buy, you donate the meal, regardless of whatever product, or is it just a lip balm?
It's for every product, yes. And so awesome. Our lip balms are $5 each, and then our body balms are $26. And then we have some milk baths, and I also just recently launched coconut soap.
Well, we're going to show your website in a little bit here, so that you can talk through, the different products. So 9,000. When did Kaya Essentials start? How long have you been in business?
We started about 4 years ago. Um,
Okay.
the first year, I we weren't launched online, and so that's when I was doing the artisanal markets, farmers markets, and so we've been online
Pop-ups.
for about 3 years. But
Okay.
4 years from when we started the donations,
Right.
and we started, and that was just with lip balm for the first year.
Right. But that's amazing. 9,000 meals. I mean, you're right. I actually know of a little boy. His story just really broke my heart. I asked why he wasn't in school. He said, hindi po ako nakabenta ng enough bote. You know, like he was selling Diario bote, like newspaper, and so he collects it, buys them from, from house to, who goes house to house,
To return
and
it and get the
right, and then sell it to like the junk shop, I think, or something like that. So he said hindi siya nakabenta ng bote. He wasn't able to, sell enough bottles. So then he didn't have anything to eat. And so he was really hungry and he gets nauseous. So he couldn't go to school. So
yeah.
that just really breaks my heart. Why can you not? Why there shouldn't be any children, that would go hungry. So that just really stuck with me. That was a few
I,
years back when maybe 10 years ago when somebody told me that, and Kusina ng Kalinga wasn't even born yet at that time.
and I remember, yeah, when I was speaking to one of the mothers, who through K&K when I was volunteering for them, and they were saying how thankful they were for the program. And in my head, I was thinking about how it's so great because having a free meal, would help with their finances. The fact that they don't have to allocate their budget into providing lunch meals for their children. And she was talking about how it saves her time. And I realized that's something that I never, really thought about, and thought about
Mm,
how, women have the responsibilities of the house, like, and when you have children, I don't have children of my own, but like thinking about my mom and how it like is nonstop, I was thinking, yeah, she already prepares a breakfast for maybe 3 children and has to like get them ready for school and clean up and all this stuff. The fact that she doesn't even have to prepare a lunch meal and knows that it's taken care of, and
right,
maybe that gives her 30 minutes or 20 minutes of rest, or at
right,
least do other things on her list like that.
right,
I remember talking to that one nana, and I was thinking about how also you see that it's just a school meal, but when you see the impact that it has for families, and also with K&K, they source all the ingredients that they use from local farmers as well, and so that
right,
it's creating that like direct relationship, and farmers can ensure like, okay, I have this sale, like I'm growing this, my crop goes to them, like it's gonna provide a steady income, because that's also
right,
difficult for farmers, who might not
right.
have those regular customers. So I remember that moment when she told me that. And so
All
yeah.
right. Well, at this point, I just wanted to share like a couple of comments and just shout outs. From Tess de Leon Javier, watching here at GK Consuelo. And she said, good morning po, all Gawad Kalinga families. Love GK Consuelo and GK Takasan. And then from Maricel Villanueva, who's, of course, our executive director, she says, thank you, Sarah, for the constant support for Kusina ng Kalinga through your one-for-one model. And again, we just encourage everyone, if you have any comments or questions for Sarah, feel free to put in your comments, and Chrissy will be sharing them with us here. I wanted to show your website so you can share with us what the different products, and you can here, can you see it?
I can see
Awesome.
it. I hope all you guys can see it.
Yes, this is
Our
awesome. So
page.
bright and colorful. Okay.
You.
All right. So this is a lip balm, like you mentioned earlier. It's go ahead and talk to us about these different products.
Yeah, so right over here, our on the left is our calamansi lip balm, and so that was the first ever Kaya Essentials product. But as I mentioned, like it was did not look like that. When you start off, you just have to like go with it, and so we actually had like very little color. And then this is our third design now. And then our face masks are actually handmade by rags to riches artisans as well. And so they all feature indigenous woven designs. So we have the Catarines, and there's Binacol, and the Lilavi, which is on the very bottom. And they're super well made, and they're very thick and durable. And the weave, when you, I've never, had never seen it in before, but what it takes to weave our fabrics and the loom and how intricate it is, especially when you talk about patterns and how each thread is like so important. You have such, an appreciation for it, and extending the life of all our clothes, and fabrics is so important. And also with rags to riches is on the very right, which is the aruga top in with the pinilian removable sleeves. And
Mm-hmm.
one thing I love about rags to riches is that they always think about maximizing the ways that you can wear your clothes. And so the sleeves are actually removable, so you can mix and match with different designs as well. So there's multiple ways to wear it. And then if we go to the very top,
Oh,
under
top.
our skincare, and so you can see our full line over here. So we just
Wow.
started, we just launched our coconut soap bars. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm so excited for our Yalang Yalang one. There is, I think, two different scents with Yalang Yalang, because Yalang Yalang actually comes from the Philippines. And
Mm-hmm.
the name itself is derived from Ilan Ilan.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a really beautiful aromatherapy, that's very like cleansing. And then the jasmine is inspired by sampaguita, our national flower. And so it gives you that fruity and kind of like woody mix. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so we have our body balms in 7 different essential oils, and
Mm-hmm.
our lip balms. And then we also have some milk baths as well, our coconut milk baths. So that's with organic coconut milk powder, and then mixed with different salts. So the Himalayan salt is very detoxifying, and then the charcoal salt is really exfoliating. And then we have a lavender one as well. And so all of this, for any people who are interested in online businesses, this is hosted by Shopify. And so I created it through Shopify and built the website through them. But it really is a labor of love when it comes to like the photography, packaging, and the descriptions of everything. And so it's a lot of work, but it's very fulfilling.
I love these colors, and I love, I love everything in here. And then you skip the travel gift box. I know, right? We're not allowed to travel yet, or we're very limited to traveling. But I have an idea, all
Yeah.
right, for people who are watching this. See, when I want to try products, right, that I'm not sure are going to work well with me, especially because I have a sensitive skin,
Yeah.
I would buy the travel version, right? So I know this is a gift box, but if this is, this, I don't know, it says sold out, but but if you just want to try, a little bit, just to see how, if it works for you and everything, I think gift box, like the travel version or the travel packages work,
Yeah, so
really
actually,
well.
our travel gift box is with our full size product, actually. But
Oh,
what I
okay.
would say is that for sensitive skin types, I would
Mhm.
recommend not having any of our essential oil
Okay.
formulas. And so that's our honey and coconut, which is just our 3 main ingredients, which is the fair trade organic coconut oil, organic mango butter, and organic beeswax. And our travel gift box actually came through the pandemic because it is a gift box that has the smells, the aromas, and then we also have our Theo and Philo dark chocolate calamansi chocolate bar. So you get kind of
Hmm.
the taste of the Philippines, the smell of the Philippines. So it's supposed to be, because we can't travel, it's a way to kind of ignite your
Ah,
senses and have the travel come to you for a special night kind of thing.
okay. But it's
And
sold
so,
out.
yeah, so we
I'm
are going to
echoing, am
talk
I?
that in the next
Am I
couple of weeks. So
echoing?
sharing, as you shared with like all the different like production issues that can come up. So we are waiting on
Yeah.
our Theo and Philo chocolate. And so that's why that particular gift box is not available. But then we also do have our artisan marketplace, which is new. So if we go to Shop All, you can see all the different um, artisan goods. So we talked about rags to riches.
Oh,
Um,
I love
that
this.
belt
Puso
bag,
bag.
that's actually rags to riches as
That is
well.
awesome.
And what I love about it is that it can also come flat. It stores as flat, and so it's like a pyramid design as like a clutch,
Uh-huh.
which is also like very different in my point of view. So
Right.
it just gives your outfit like that extra pop. But then when you do store it, it stores flat when you open up the zips. And so for traveling
Ah,
and just, for storage at home, sometimes when you have both
right.
things, you feel like, I love it, but it's going to take so much space. And so I love that it comes flat.
Right, right. This is so cool too. I heard her dog. So while she's away, these are really cool earrings, right? And if you're going to like parties and everything, these are going to be really good statement pieces.
I'm back. I'm here. Sorry.
Oh, you're fine.
She
I
takes,
was,
she's extra protective when my husband's not at home. Uh,
oh,
so whenever she hears anything, she's like on the lookout. But yeah, those are our arrow earrings inspired by the Filipino sun from our national flag. Uh,
yeah.
they're made
I
out of,
was just saying that, these are great like statements, pieces to wear. Like if you're, well, they can be casual, they can also be like
yeah.
evening,
And
right?
even for like
Then,
Zoom calls and stuff, we found that our earrings are like the most popular right now. And actually, with the arrow earrings, my mom uses it as like a brooch, actually. So she'll only put like one on and then
uh-huh.
like put it onto like her jackets, for example. And it just gives that like extra,
That's a
design.
great point, especially now. Like most people are on Zoom, they don't see you can wear shorts and a formal like a blazer or something, right?
Yeah.
But you can accessorize, so it makes you a little bit more, interesting environment. And you have more earrings here and everything. More, what is that? Oh, abaka scrub. So is that like a loofah or something?
Yeah, and so it's a zero waste
Ah,
loofah because a lot of the loofahs are made out of like plastic materials, and so when it goes to landfill, for example, it doesn't biodegrade. And this is abaca, which also Philippines is one of the top producers of. And so when you are finished with your scrub, it naturally biodegrades and is compostable even in your backyard, and so goes
awesome.
into soil. And then
I'm
we have.
just scrolling through here. What are bamboo straw? Like straw, like for
Yes, it's a
drinks?
straw that you can use for your drinks and it's reusable.
Oh,
So
wow.
we have a regular straw and a boba straw as well. So for like smoothies or boba at home, you can have, you don't have to like create waste with any
Those
plastic
are
straws.
so
That's
cool.
usable.
Oh, and I love this too. Pandan woven canister.
Yes, a
Nice.
lot of like home things as well to have those like touches, and they're all handmade by artisan communities. And so when you go to each one, you'll see which community it's made from. And then we also have a page with all the information of all the different artisan communities. And so I hope that really having things that are sustainably made that provide jobs in the Philippines and give back, adds to the joy of having these pieces.
And this is what you're wearing right now, right?
Yes, and so that is the yellow binacol, and so we'll have the black one available soon. So you guys are kind of getting like the first teaser of it. And this design is from Rags to Riches.
This is so cool. And I love the name too. Yakap, wrap,
It just
ah,
it gives you a
huh,
hug,
it's good.
and it's like our thank
Yeah.
you to our to our community for help, for being part of Kaya and growing. And then Yakap from our artisans. And so Reese, who's also so intentional about all her products and how it's made, it goes into like the name of the product as well.
Right. And I love these. These are cute ornaments.
Yeah,
That
those are from our holiday line, and
uh,
so they're pearl ornaments, and you can use them like not only for Christmas time, but I thought the angels were nice for throughout the whole year as well, so we kept it online.
all right, cool. So you also mentioned that there's a special deal for Gawad Kalinga supporters and advocates. So listen up, you guys.
I'm so
Um,
thankful for my Gawad Kalinga family. And so we have a discount going on. If you put in the code Gawad Kalinga at checkout, it gives you 40% off all our skincare items. And so that's for all the lip balms, the body balms, the soaps. And so at 40%, it's almost a buy one.
is there a deadline for that, or is it does that when does that expire? That offer expire?
I haven't created a deadline for it. So if for some reason it's not working whenever you view this message, feel free to reach out on the contact page and just mention that you are our Gawad Kalinga loyal customer family, and I can if I can look into it, but there's no expiration for it right now.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us your journey, your business. It's not always easy to be a entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur at that because you guys just have so much more considerations than a typical business who that is mainly for profit or for profit only. Obviously, it's a for profit business, but you consider a lot of things like your sourcing, where you're getting your products from, making sure that it's a fair trade provider and stuff like that. Those choices are not always easy, and so I really admire you for your brave heart in taking this on, and I really also kudos to your mom too for raising a fine woman like you, right? So you credit her for many things that are instrumental in you establishing this business. And I understand now your name, many of our GK friends probably know you as Sarah Meredith, and now you're Sarah Meredith Ku, right? So how is the hobby supporting this entrepreneur, this business of yours?
Yeah, no, a recent marriage. We've been together for almost 5 years now. And my husband is Korean American and actually started off in the social entrepreneurship world as well. He
Oh,
created
nice.
a magazine with his best friends in his early 20s called Good Magazine. And it was all about highlighting businesses that were doing social good before Tom's even existed. And
Oh,
so
wow. That is so cool.
funnily enough, of course, on our first date, we had so much to talk about and talked about his experience in social entrepreneurship. I shared so much about GK. And so, yeah, and so it's been great having a supportive partner through it
How long
all.
have you guys been married?
We've only been married for less than a year. And so we were waiting with the pandemic to try and hope that we could do it with our friends and family, and instead had a courthouse wedding. Um, but yeah, and we both met here in LA almost 5 years ago now.
Well, you are definitely meant for each other, obviously, right? With your heart's in the right place, and you're sometimes it can be also challenging if your significant other has a totally different world. So obviously, you're sort of from the same worlds, and then your worlds collide, and it's just romantic. Oh my gosh! So all right. So any final message and final thing that you want to share to our Gawad Kalinga friends here tonight?
Yeah, really, like as I mentioned before, like I've grown up so much with GK, and that's not only like with business and as an entrepreneur, my life is my business, and so there's so much like life growth in it as well. But I would really encourage to find what sparks your activism, your joy. For me, it was K&K and the social enterprise, but GK has been doing so much. And one thing that I'm also very passionate about is their disaster relief programs and how quick they are, how they're on the ground in providing relief for when natural disaster strike, which is a lot in the Philippines, unfortunately. And with climate change, it's only going to grow. But yeah, I would really encourage you, and you can grow with GK as well. And it can always be a part of your life.
I love that. You can grow with GK, definitely, right? And we're excited and we're thankful and grateful for what you've done already and continue to do for Gawad Kalinga, for K&K specifically. And we're excited for many more amazing things that are in store in your future, in the future of Kaya Essentials. And for everyone who wants to check out Kaya Essentials products, please visit kayaessentials.com.
Correct.
Those are amazing products. I'm hopping on to that website. I'm going back as soon as we as soon as we finish here. Thanks again, Sarah, and thanks everyone for joining us this evening. Please make it a habit every Thursday night at 5 p.m. here at Quantum GK. This has been Donna Reyes, your weekly kakwentuhan. Thanks, Sarah. Good night, everyone.